weeks. You guys have won at a road course, mile and a half, and now at a short track. Talk about the speed you've had in this car over the past few weeks and the team's performance today.
Yeah, we've been putting good cars on the track. I think last week we arguably had the best car, or certainly good enough to run with them. This week we definitely had a top 2 or 3 car, and we had some misfortune turn into some good fortune with the way those cautions fell there when there was oil on the track and he thought he had a flat right front. But part of the game is about preparing a good car and executing all day and putting yourself in positions to take advantage of things like this. Plenty of times you put yourself in a position like this and it goes against you, but today it definitely went for us.
We'll go ahead and open it up to questions. Please state your name and affiliation. We'll start here with Bob.
Jim Uttershaw, Observer. Adam, I know nothing is official until you can get into the top 30 in points, but at this time, given your performance over the last month or so, is this a team that can win the championship? Do you feel you're at that level? I have a quick follow.
Man, that's a tough one. I think so. I think it's all about how we prepare the cars and execute, like I've said, and we've shown, even while Kyle was gone, I feel like we've shown that we have speed and we have solid cars. Since Kyle's come back, maybe it's put a little bit more speed in them. To that point, with the chase format, with the eliminations and then it all coming down to one race, if we can keep our head on our shoulders and get in first and then, continue to prepare good cars and execute, I think we can.
And to kind of follow up on that, with Kyle missing the first 11 races, you didn't have the opportunity to work with him at the beginning. He didn't have any time on the track on this original rules package that has since changed some. Has anything about his performance surprised you, or are you just accustomed to seeing such things from Kyle?
Well, one of Kyle's strongest suits behind the wheel is being able to adjust, to changing track conditions, to different cars, to different rules packages. We're certainly behind the 8 ball still with the number of laps that we have versus the number of laps that everybody else has with these packages. A lot of stuff changed. The spoilers changed, the splitters changed, a lot of the body panels changed, and he got a carbon seat this year to meet the rules. All that changes the feel that he gets from the car. And then, there's the problem with getting adjusted to his feet and those things still continuing to get better. It's pretty amazing that he's been able to adapt as well as he has and still get everything out of the car with as much stuff that has changed and the leg up that the competition has just as far as number of laps with all this new stuff. I think that he can do that because he's dedicated. He can do that because he has a very diverse background of cars. And he's not used to everything feeling one way. So if it doesn't feel just like he thinks it should, that's okay. It's just different.
We'll go back to Nate and then up to Bob.
Nate Ryan, NBC Sports. Adam, all 3 of these victories, I think you can say you've played a pretty big part in it, whether it was the strategy call today or putting in position to win at Sonoma and Kentucky, managing the race right with a really good car. Does it give you a real sense of confidence that now that you've got Kyle back, that you're maximizing those opportunities as a crew chief in his first year in Cup?
Yeah, it does. It's good to get victories for sure, but so many things can happen that can turn a great job that you feel like you're doing into a really poor job. So I wouldn't hang my hat on anything in that regard, but it does go to show you, too, just how important every single person's job is on this team. And that's the A team, and that's the B team, and that's everybody at the shop. If one person doesn't do their job to the level that it needs to be done, the whole house of cards comes down. So, maybe I have 2 cards in that house of cards, but it takes all of us to get it done.
We'll go to Bob.
Bob Hawkers, ESPN. I think this is the first time you've worked with Kyle on the day after maybe a frustrating Saturday for him in the Xfinity Series. I'm curious, did you do anything to try to either pump him up or maybe how was his attitude as well, after kind of a frustrating day yesterday?
Yeah, I spent plenty of time talking to him last night, as I would before any race. Now the topics of conversation might have been a little different, so we had to wade through some of that. But, in all of my experiences with Kyle, he's very reasonable, and he's focused. Sometimes it just takes somebody to point a couple things out to him, and I feel like we have a good enough relationship that I'm always able to do that. But it was pretty standard, other than a little bit of the conversation covering his frustrations from the Xfinity race. But Kyle is. One of his greatest strengths, I've said before too, is being able to focus forward. And the more you put on him, it seems like the better he can perform. So it didn't have any bearing on anything we did today, that's for sure.
We'll go here to Terrell, and then in the back.
Hi, Terrell Coving with the Portsmouth Herald. For not just your team, but for all of Gibbs to come in here and perform the way you had this weekend, knowing this is the second track in the chase, how much confidence does that give you, and how much data were you able to collect to say, hey, let's come back and do it again?
Wow, that's a good question. I didn't come in here with any thoughts of this being a chase track, to be honest with you. Because we are so committed to having to run good now, we probably didn't spend much time exploring or doing things. We did a couple things in practice, I guess, that we probably didn't need to get a direction. But there's enough of us now with 4 teams that we can gather some pretty good notes and always be a little bit better when we come back. I felt like all the Gibbs cars at times showed speed. Certainly Carl did today and in qualifying trim and all through practice, and Matt and Denny did as well. So we definitely have a good baseline to work from and some good ideas for some directions to improve.
We'll go right here.
Alex Hall with the New Hampshire Union Leader. Adam, just when after that caution where Kyle was able to grab the lead there, just kind of what was the mentality for you guys over that last stretch of the race, and how were you guys able to just kind of keep that lead throughout the rest of it?
Well, when we pitted there, when we thought we had the flat and came back out, first it was a race to get in the lucky dog spot, and that happened pretty quick. And then it was a race to unlap ourselves, and that happened pretty quick, thankfully. So once that happened, I was hoping for a caution because everybody couldn't make it on fuel. We could, and we knew they had to come down pit road. And we got the caution, which was pretty sweet. We only had 5 laps on our tires, so obviously there was no benefit to us pitting. And a bunch of guys took 2 with 50 or 60 laps on their tires. And even if they had a better car, it would have been really hard for them to get around us with that many laps on their lefts. And from that point on, it was just a matter of not overworking the tires because we were certainly done pitting at that point. Quite a few guys took 4 behind the 5 or 6 that took 2, so you knew they were going to stay out the rest of the day. So it was a matter of managing what you had and not pushing it too hard in case we did get a caution and had to race them again.
Rob Tiongson of the PodiumFinish.net. Adam, does it give you extra motivation? I know it feels good to beat anybody at any time, but when it comes to beating the 2 team, and given the history between Kyle and Brad, does it feel extra gratifying knowing you've beaten what has been Kyle's biggest nemesis on the track?
I don't think so. What kind of makes me smile is, with regard to that team, is, we've just been to their 2 best tracks, probably statistically, or certainly at the speed that they've had in recent years. So to come out of here with 2 victories is pretty special. I've spent a lot of time racing against some of those guys on the Xfinity side and continue to race with them up here. So it's always fun. But, they showed so much speed here, the Penske guys did last year. So to come out of here with another win is pretty special.
We'll go up to the press box and then down here to Bob.
Adam, Michael Vega, Boston Globe. Just wanted to gauge what was the reaction when amongst you all in the pits when you saw Kyle execute that move to unlap himself.
Yeah, I didn't think that. I thought he was another 3 or 4 laps away from being able to do that, but they were slipping in the same stuff that he slipped in, so it kind of closed the gap a little quicker than it should have. But man, once he did that and then squeezed through the center, we knew that things were looking our way and that we were going to have a good finish no matter what happened.
We'll go to Bob.
Bob Pockris, ESPN. You've had very good cars, and things have kind of worked in your favor the last few weeks. Are you starting to feel, I don't want to say lucky, but fortunate in this season compared to maybe the first 15 weeks?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess, we had some bad luck on the front side and certainly some good luck here today and certainly at Sonoma as well. So it feels good. You feel like the scales are starting to balance out for you and for this team and for Kyle himself. So certainly I think so.
We are now joined by our race-winning car owner, Coach Joe Gibbs. Joe, 3 wins in the last 4 weeks by the number 18 team. How has it been watching the team rally behind Kyle's return and performance?
Well, I think I said before when we won Sonoma, with Kyle, it was a great sports story. I think this only adds to it. I think he's been on a tear, and mentally, I think he's really been up on it. He really does. Ever since the injury, and I think Adam will tell you this. He's really been after it. They've really been proud of him. The way he's handled everything, and there's been some disappointments for sure. He's handled that extremely well, too. And so it's a tribute to Adam and teaming them up this year. It's certainly meant a lot. I think Adam would tell you this. Our entire group of drivers and crew chiefs get along great right now in all of our technical meetings. It was great today for Norm and Interstate Batteries. Somebody think about it. They're 24 years with us. Our founding sponsor. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. For Norm and Scott, and then all of the Mars family. We were fortunate enough to have Tracy here with M&Ms. And so we've been blessed, really. We've got great people. I appreciate everybody back at the race shop, all of our other sponsors and our drivers and everybody that's chipped in to make it a total team effort.
We'll open it up to questions for Coach Gibbs and for Adam. Start here in the front with Terrell.
Terrell Covey, Portsmouth Herald. You see in other sports, particularly football, which I know you have some familiarity with, teams kind of get their backs to the wall and make a run to a championship. Do you guys feel like, A, that's possible in NASCAR, and B, that you kind of might be getting a little bit of that vibe right now?
Well, for me, I think obviously you get on a roll, and if you got real good teams, and in pro sports, really what you find, if you got a weak link, you're not going. And so I think over here you got to have a great crew chief, driver, pit crew, and support team back at home. And also in our sports, you got to have other drivers to add information and crew chiefs that add information. So it's total team. Very unusual team sport when you think about it. You got 4 entities at the racetrack, but everybody is one big team back at our race shop, and we work together. And the other thing about this sport, which I love, is the fact you can't race without a great sponsor. Other sports, you don't need sponsors. Football, basketball, baseball. Over here, you got to have a big part of the team as a sponsor. And so today is Interstate Batteries, and then, like I mentioned, M&M's is a big part of that car. So it's a very unusual dynamic, and certainly in sports, we all love it because what? You can have great victories and you can have great defeats. We had a real terrible thing happen to us at Daytona, and we've come all the way back after 11 weeks, and to be able to get 3 wins here is really special. I appreciate our partner, Toyota, and all they do for us. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. So I really think what I'm proudest of is everybody together as a team. I think we're really pulling hard together. As everybody knows, we were down for a while, particularly at intermediate tracks, and so we've worked real hard to try and get back.
Mark Arrow, PRN. Coach, a couple of questions. Number one, I think it's like 121 points out of that 179-point deficit, whatever it is. How confident, given this hot streak, that he can get to 30th? He's 33rd now. Do you feel more confident now that it's sort of in sight?
Well, I think it sure helps. It's just like you said, if you can see it, it's a lot better than where we were before when we started, being way back over 100 points. I think right now, I think Kyle seems to just be still very, very aggressive. He's not points racing. He's after it. And probably he and Adam have talked that over. Adam probably can answer better than I can, but I think they're trying to keep themselves up front and try and get good finishes. Anything can happen in sports, so I'm always nervous about it. You can break apart. You can have wrecks. You can have freaky thunderstorms and stuff that's already happened to us. So I think you just have to keep our head down and keep digging.
Over the years as a football coach, you saw a lot of great athletes make remarkable comebacks from really serious injuries. How does this thing stack up with, Kyle coming back and having as much success as he's had?
Well, I think it's a great story. It's a personal story for him because, you see somebody like that suffer such a tough injury. And we were really worried about Sonoma being able to even drive the race. I will say this. I went over to his house. Adam was over there visiting right after the surgery on his foot, and he was bright-eyed and after it. He was already working out and trying to get off bed and everything else. I think it is, in sports you do see stories like this where somebody's really hurt, and then to be able to come back in this amount of time is a special story.
What do you think the ingredient to that is? What goes into somebody making that kind of comeback?
I think probably the reason why we admire great athletes, a lot of us dreamed about being a great athlete, and we weren't good enough. And then you see the people that are good enough, but then there's only a few that are really, really special in a sport. And I think Kyle is one of those in racing because he has unusual ability, but also has a real fire and a passion for what he does. And so that kind of comes through, and I think it showed up over these last 5 weeks.
We are now joined by our race winner, Kyle Busch. Kyle, talk about how important it was making that pass in the leaders to get back on the lead lap with about 50 to go.
Oh, please.
After you get your water.
The pass for the lead there coming out of turn 4, it was real important. At the time, we weren't sure how important it was going to be, but it certainly turned out to be the pass of the race. But, I just knew coming out of turn 4, those guys in front of me were all on old tires and kind of slow, but I didn't want to waste too much time with them. So I saw this lap car up on the high side, and I knew that, Brad was going to try to box me in behind him and not let me through and make me wait for another corner or another set of 2 corners. But, I just kind of bulldozed my way, I guess, through there a little bit and kind of moved him out of the way somewhat down the front stretch, the 2. And there was just enough gap for me to fit between the 2 and the 4. And when I did that, I got on the inside of the 4, getting into turn 1 and cleared them both there on that front straightaway. So, good maneuver. I felt like that was, a smart move at that time. I keep saying we got to pick and choose our battles, and that was a battle right there that, obviously we were in a hurry, and we needed to do the right things to be on the lead lap for if there were a caution to come out with all the oil that was on the racetrack.
We'll go up to the press box for the next question.
Kyle, Michael Vega, Boston Globe, congratulations. Just if you could reflect on the streak that you are on right now, having won 2 in a row in 3 of the last 4 races. Does this give you the sense that, this could be a special season for you, given the way it started, and what you have had to come back from?
Yeah, no doubt. This is pretty special. This is something that I'm not sure we ever would have expected, Adam, myself, Joe, the team, anybody, the organization for that matter. But it certainly is nice. It certainly has been a perfect storm, if you will, to come back and to get back into fast race cars. That's what's meant the most, and to just be able to have that opportunity. Thank Joe and JD and everybody at Joe Gibbs Racing for that. Things are working in our favor right now, and we're just doing the right things at the right time. And Adam's making some really good adjustments and some really good calls. And today we may not have been the best car. We were early, but towards the end, I'm not sure that we were. But we put ourselves in the right spot to be able to capitalize. And sometimes in NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, you got to be able to do that. And today was one of those opportunities for us.
We'll go to Jim and then Bob.
Jim Miller, Charles Observer. One question for Coach and one for Kyle. Coach, you mentioned earlier about being down earlier in the season, particularly on 1.5-mile tracks. Given the last couple weeks, do you feel the organization has turned a corner?
Well, I think we're certainly back closer. I don't know we've turned a corner. I think, we've got a lot of intermediate tracks in the chase, and we'll see when we get there. But certainly I think we're in a better position now, and I think we've worked extremely hard. It took us, show you how hard the sport is, it took us a year and a half realizing we're behind where we were, and then to put everybody to work trying to catch up. So I think last week was a good, although that racetrack it's a heck of a racetrack with a lot of different lanes there and different ways to race. So we'll have to see, but I think certainly we're a lot closer.
And Kyle, when you first came back, you talked about a lot of the kind of issues that you would deal with. You hadn't worked much in Cup with Adam. You had no experience, no track time with the rules package that we started the season with. During these 8 races so far, have any of those proved to be difficult, or one more so than any other?
No, I don't think so, really. Maybe I was just making excuses at the time in case I sucked, I guess. But fortunately, I haven't had to have any excuses lately, so that's a good thing, I guess. But, no, I mean, to your point about Adam, we've worked together for a few years on the Xfinity side, and normally when I'm done driving the race car, I talk to him for probably 10 minutes, and then he's on doing his own thing. He doesn't need me anymore. But on the Cup side, you're definitely with each other a heck of a lot more, and you do have to give more feedback, and this is a higher level. So to be able to give better direction for your crew chief and those guys to make some smart calls for the race day on Sunday or whatever it might be, it's obvious that we've been able to click, and he understands, what I'm saying, what I'm talking about. At least I think he does. So far, he's made some good adjustments for me. But, it's all come together. And the cars, I think that's just a product of all of us at Joe Gibbs Racing and been getting better. Anytime you can have good stuff, obviously the cars will drive well or better than the other guys. I wouldn't say ours was perfect all day. It certainly felt a heck of a lot better in the beginning of the race than it did towards the end. But we had enough speed that we needed there at the end anyways.
We'll go to Bob.
Bob Pockris, ESPN. After Sonoma, you talked about you wouldn't have to take chances. You didn't chances to win, and you could maybe be a little bit conservative. Now, with just being 58 points at 30th, can you be unleashed in a way? I mean, can you take any chances, more chances, and is there any sort of relief in that if that's the case?
Well, I mean, I felt like I took a little bit of a chance there today with the move down the front stretch, but that was a calculated risk that I felt like I needed to take at that particular moment. If it was, I don't know, if it were lap 100, then no, I don't think that would have happened. So I would have just waited it out and just kind of let the thing play out. But what I was racing for at that time was my life, to get back on the lead lap, and we needed that, and so that's when you got to make those moves. So that's why I say you don't know what situations are going to come about, and you just got to take those moments as they come to you. And really, you can't think about it. You just got to react and do the right thing, or hope that it turns out to be the right thing. And fortunately for that situation, it was. But I'm not sure we're unleashed the beast at all. We're taking one race at a time and doing everything that we need to do to have the right opportunities come our way, like today.
We'll go to Pat and then Nate.
Pat DeCola, NASCAR.com. Kyle, we had a few drivers treated for heat-related illnesses after the race, and something you wouldn't really necessarily expect to see in New Hampshire, of all places. How bad was the heat out there for you, and did you feel any effects from it?
Yeah, I'm definitely warm. I'm still trying to cool down right now. As cold as it is in here, you get that brisk when you walk through the door, but then after that, you're like, okay, I need more. It's warm. This is one of the warmest days I think I've ever remembered up here in this part of the country. So, fortunately for me, I was all good. I've got a really good team of guys that work on my seat for me, and I've really been nitpicking them a lot this year to try to get more and more comfortable each week. But it's really paying off, hopefully, now that they see us winning some races, and I'm thankful to them for giving me the right cooling and everything that I needed. So I was good.
Nate Ryan, NBC Sports. Kyle, following up on what you were saying about Adam and about how this is a different level for a crew chief, not just on the adjustments, but the strategy. You see a lot where crew chiefs or drivers with really good cars can kind of take themselves out of the game. It seems like he's maximized your ability to be in position to win in each of these 3 victories. That must be a lot of confidence for you that he can do that in his first year.
Well, I was the pit strategist today. I wanted to pit, and he was like, all right, bring it to me. So, no, it worked out for us. He didn't call that one. but he has done a really, really good job. You know, he's been very smart and very calculated, and he knows what we're racing for. He knows what we're racing. He knows what circumstances are built around us and what other guys are doing as well, too. You know, he can take in the whole big picture of what's going on. And, you know, certainly there's going to be times where it bites him or bites us. And, you know, we may look like we're idiots, but as of late, you know, he's still calculated and does a really good job, and, you know, appreciative.
All right, we'll go in the back.
Alex Hall, New Hampshire Union leader. You know, Kyle, just how are you kind of able to kind of build the lead you were able to have there at the end, and just what did it mean for you to kind of get another win at New Hampshire under your belt?
Yeah, I had a really fast car on that restart. You know, I think it may have been the scuff tires that we had because we ran 5 laps and then they kind of got a chance to cool down, and essentially they were scuffs, you know, and everybody else was still on their stickers, so they were all kind of sliding all around back there, and I was able to get away a little bit, you know. I wanted to build up probably a bigger lead just in case, but I also wanted to save my stuff, so I was just kind of riding out there once I got to about, you know, 1.5, 2 seconds. I was just kind of riding, trying to save my stuff, and fortunately, you know, I don't know if I saved enough or if I didn't get a big enough gap, but, you know, Brad was fast at the end. He started to run us back down, and, you know, that's where I say we've got some work to do to try to get our stuff a little bit better. I'm not sure we're maximizing everything we need, and I think I've got some good ideas about that, but you know, we'd like to get our cars better on the long run, because that's what you see here at Loudon, a lot of long runs.
Rob T. Youngson from the podiumfinish.net. This question's for Kyle. It seems like some drivers have a very good track that they feel really comfortable or at home with, and Loudon seems to suit your style, or at least we talked about it before last year. Like, you just seem to excel here real well. What is it about Loudon, without giving too much away, that you find to be like that suits your style?
You know, that's a trick question, because, you know, when I ran here for Hendrick, I really struggled the first year, and then the second year I won a race here. You know, I was running up front, running third, whatever, and then I seemed to struggle for a long time, you know, finishing up with Hendrick and then going to Joe Gibbs Racing. We really didn't have a lot of good finishes here, but as of late, you know, we've really put some good finishes together and had some strong runs with Darian Grubb coming over and helping on the 11 car. I feel like maybe that was a little bit of it. But, you know, Dave also, you know, we just kind of completely revamped what our thought process was for this place. And when we did that, it seemed to really help us. And, you know, you definitely have good race cars can make your job a heck of a lot easier, you know. And that, too, you know, qualifying up front seems to help us as well, just not having to be able to battle through the field and take chances with our race car and on beating it up.
Do we have any additional questions for Joe or Adam? Okay.
This is for all three. It's two-parter. Number one, Kyle talked about after the race, you know, hey, I'm even surprised. You know, we won 3 out of 4 running so well. And are you guys surprised? And how do all three of you feel about the fact you've chopped 121 points out of that 179-point deficit, and how confident you are now to get up to 30th, sitting 33rd?
Yeah, I'm really surprised that we've won 3 out of 4. That's tough to do. Given any set of circumstances, that's tough to do. But you know, it all goes back to putting good cars on the track and executing well and being able to take advantage of some situations. And we've certainly been able to do that. As far as getting in the chase with the points deficit being down to 50-something, I guess, man, I thought we would have chopped more off of that today, honestly, but 29 points?
But last week was more, right?
Yeah, he must have had a worse finish last week. But anyway, that's manageable. The whole thing's been manageable. It's all just about, you know, I think when it started we had to average 13th or 14th, and that's certainly within the capabilities of the team. It's about not having a bad day. And unfortunately, we had a couple bad days right off the bat. But, you know, kind of what goes around comes around. So I don't have any fears of being able to close that gap, but we can't get back on our heels either. We still got to approach each weekend like we have been.
Does anybody else want to speak to that? We're good.
I just think as far as, you know, I always worry. I never go to the racetrack saying, hey, look, you know, we got this thing, because I think in pro sports what's happened to you. Matter of fact, last week I called 1 or 2 of our drivers and they said, man, we're not real good. and they wound up. So, and I've done the same thing with Kyle from time to time, you know. So you're always, for me, being in pro sports, is I think that's why we love it. We don't know what's going to happen. Anything can happen from any week. I would say this, that this has been a pretty amazing thing, what Kyle and Adam have been able to do with our entire team, because there's one thing to win races and get on a hot streak, but to come back from, you think about our team for 11 weeks, those guys going over the wall and everything, I'm looking at their face and their eyes, and, you know, it was just extremely hard for everybody, including our sponsor. And so you put all that together, and to be able to bounce back from that and have a chance to call the sponsors today and talk to them, it's just it's one of those things that can happen, but you don't get many of them, so we're going to enjoy it.
Kyle, are you truly surprised it's 3 out of 4 in this streak that you're on?
I never would have guessed it. You know, if somebody would have said, "Hey, you're going to come back and you're going to win," you know, 3 of 4, or 3 of how many have I raced now? 8, whatever. I would have said, "Yeah, right, you're crazy." You know, but it's certainly doable. And like I said, you know, I got to give credit where credit's due, and our race team's really good right now. You know, Joe got on them a little while back and told them, "Let's fix this," and they listen. When Joe talks, they listen. So you need to talk more often. But you know, we've been doing a really good job, and you know, I think the organization has as a whole. Carl was really fast this weekend. You know, we kept ourselves up front today. Our pit crew did a really good job. We executed, and that's what you got to do on these days. You know, there's you know, the 2 cars should have probably been the fastest car, or was the fastest car last week, was a little bit this week, and yet somebody beat them. You know, they executed just a little bit differently, and were able to win the race. So that's going to happen to us too. But we just got to take what we can get when we get it, and you know, take those opportunities and make the most of them.
Coach and Adam, if you'd like to go ahead. We do have a few additional questions for Kyle. We'll go up to the press box.
Thanks, sir. Kyle, Michael Vega again. Just wanted to ask you if you could just compare and contrast your feelings about the way when in your comeback when you had those 2 wrecks in the first 4 races and you're staring at that 179-point deficit. Did it seem insurmountable to you at that point? You know, and then to contrast that with just the role here. Do you feel like now you've left no doubt that you're going to make this chase?
I mean, when the deficit was as big as it was, you know, we certainly wished it was smaller, you know, but I could have come back later and the deficit would have been bigger too, you know, so who knows. I feel like everything's just, you know, there's a plan in this world for all of us, and God's certainly put one on my table this year that I don't know that I've ever really had this big of a challenge before, but that was in the injury and now, you know, getting back in the race car and getting back in the chase. So, you know, in my mind, the opportunity I got put in front of me was to run 20 championship weeks from here on out to the end of the year. That's what it's going to be for us. And we're making the most of that right now. I certainly didn't do a very good job of that at Dover and at Michigan. So, you know, we'll continue to make sure that we're smart.
Final questions for Kyle. We'll finish up here with Terrell.
Kyle, I asked Coach this as well, but for you guys, in other sports, you see teams kind of get their backs to the wall and make a run. Do you feel like you guys are sort of getting into that groove right now where you can, because you're in that championship mindset now, you've got to be up there every week, where it gives you an advantage as you head into the chase, hopefully?
Yes and no. I mean, sometimes I always haven't been the smartest points racer out there. You know, I've put myself in some bad spots, and you know, I don't know that our backs are in a corner, but it's certainly, you know, we're not like the rest of everybody else. You know, we're not in that same position as they are. So, you know, I've made mistakes in the past, and hopefully I don't continue those same mistakes this year, but who's to know? We'll just continue on and you know, try to strive and do the best we can each and every week. And thankfully I've had really good partners stand behind me this year with Interstate Batteries and M&Ms and Monster and Toyota and everybody that's really stepped up to the plate and have helped me not only in my recovery, but in having some good race cars on the racetrack for when I returned. You know, we were able to do this and have the success that we're having. And there's no better way than to chopping off a deficit than winning races. So this certainly feels good. And you know, I'm probably running at 100%. I don't know if everybody else is running at 100%. But if they are, then we're beating them. My 100's better than theirs, But if there's guys out there that are only running at 80% and they're finishing third, fourth, fifth, then we better watch our backs for when they do turn up the wick and chase time hits.
All right, thanks for joining us today, Kyle, and congratulations.